Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Friday the 13th. It's race number 9 at Belmont at the Big A. Let's throw up the field for the Winter Memories Stakes. We're going 1 mile on the turf, 3-year-old fillies. Opening day at Belmont at the Big A. It's always nice to be back, I guess, downstate, but you missed the spa.
Missed the spot. It's, listen, let's be honest, it's not quite the same shipping back down to Aqueduct instead of Belmont Park, but that's where we're at this point, Dan. Pretty good opening day feature, though, with this Winter Memories. Good field here.
Our colleague Dave Grenning reports in the race advance on DRF.com that the 1 and the 4 are likely to scratch out and run Saturday at Belmont at the Big A. That allows the 11 and 12 into the body of the race. I'm curious to see what our friends at Timeform US have from a pace perspective. We'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. Now, remember, this pace projector will update after scratches are made official. If Makanga is out, that gives the 7 poolside with Slim and Frankie Dettori a lot of options.
Very tactical horse, the number 7 poolside with Slim. So certainly, if Makanga runs here, she's on the lead, Dan. If she doesn't, it sort of opens things up, I guess. I can see poolside with Slim making the lead. I can see the 5 Whiskey Decision making the lead in this race, even though they're taking the blinkers off for this race. The pace becomes a little bit more murky if the 1 scratches.
While there are some stretch out sprinters in here, I'm not exactly sure how fast they're going to be going. I tend to agree with you that the 5 Whiskey Decision should show some good early speed. We'll start briefly talking about Makanga, who's likely going to run on Saturday. This horse ran in the Saratoga Oaks, showed speed, tired. I'm expecting a pace effort if she runs in here, but apparently she goes Saturday.
Sounds like she's not going to run here. She was terrible in the Saratoga Oaks last time, but her prior race in the Wild Applause going this distance was excellent, involved on a wicked hot pace in there and lasting for 3rd.
Zoe Lee, the number 2, is one of those stretch out sprinters. The problem is they've tried her around a ground on several occasions, and it just hasn't worked out very well for her. Her last effort on synthetic was good. She was a rallying 2nd, and the 3rd place horse came back to place in a rich allowance at Kentucky Downs with an 83 buyer.
I just don't like her overall form, Dad. I mean, her sprint races are probably a little bit better than her route races. They ran in those 2 stakes at Gulfstream earlier this year. I don't know if you have a different take on them. I thought she had perfectly fine trips in those races and wasn't good enough.
I thought in the Sanibel Island, she couldn't have asked for a better trip, just saving ground in behind the lead. She did her best to get up for 3rd at a big price, but I think trip had a lot to do with it. Lay Ray is the number 3 coming in from overseas. First time for Christophe Clement, a West Point Thoroughbred partnership. This horse ran really well last time out, watching that stakes race in France. Just settled at the back of the pack, got to the outside in the stretch, and then bowled everybody over in the last 3/16 of a mile. Now, Clement had this horse entered at Saratoga, reportedly scratched due to an infection. Doesn't seem to have a lot of early speed. Might have to overcome a moderate pace.
Yeah, we'll see what we get from her here. You're right. She was entered to run in that Lake Placid, which was a really strong field. I thought she was interesting that day, and she had to scratch. And now she turns up here, which is ultimately probably a little bit of a better spot for her anyway, Dan. I'm with you. The most recent start was a really sharp and impressive win. Her last 2 starts, in fact, over there, it seems like they just sort of changed up her running style a little bit. Earlier in her career, she was handy. She'd sit up close. She still ran some really nice races. The last 2, they switched it up a little bit. They took her back early and let her run through the stretch, and she was super impressive both times, I thought.
The 4 Mixologist, another one cross-entered Saturday and expected to run there. Beaten by a couple of these in her last 2 starts, but showed marked improvement last time.
Yeah, I thought that she ran pretty well last time too. And I do feel like when you go back and watch it, just having post 10, it feels like it kind of compromised her a little bit because Rosario just had to take a hold of her, drag her back off the pace. And there, all in all, I thought Rosario did everything right and gave her a chance to win the race. But maybe she was compromised by the outside post. The prior starts, I got a little more aggressive with her. She didn't break well. She rushed up and she got tired in a performance that I think is maybe a little better than it looks on paper. I don't know, Dan. She's got a lot of pedigree. I think she's pretty good.
I'm a big fan of the 5 Whiskey Decision. Was really taken with her first level allowance win at Churchill Downs back in May. She made a big 4 wide bid on the turn and then just blasted those horses in the stretch. Arnaud Delacour couldn't have found a better spot for her in her stakes debut, the Christiana. She was 1-5 and had no problems with that field. Now, she was the beaten favorite in the Del Mar Oaks last time out. Were you surprised that she was on the pace that day? Because she has shown speed. She had to go pretty fast early.
Yeah.
Was she exposed in that race, or can you give her a mulligan?
I don't know. I think it's a tough call. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I mean, I wasn't surprised that she was forward because she was so handy in her prior races, even though she was off the pace and sometimes she was so handy, Dan. to me in the Del Rosa, just look like she didn't settle at all. And she sort of pulled Rispoli clear up the backstretch in there. And then when they came for her around the turn at the top of the stretch, she was no match for those horses. I thought it was a pretty disappointing performance. But going back to the Christiana two back, I mean, I know she was 1-5, but Style Points was in that race. Style Points is not a bad horse. And Style Points took a run at this filly and she turned her away. I don't know. I think she's good. I could easily see giving her a chance to rebound in here, especially if that morning line price is correct.
Interesting that the blinkers are coming off. I like her cutting back in distance, and you're right. She was just very headstrong last time out. And when she had to go that third quarter in 23 and change, it
Yeah.
really cooked her goose. The 6 is Cloud Walker, who's stretching out in distance and must prove that she's a little bit more than a closing sprinter. Here's her most recent race, going 5.5 at Saratoga. It's the Coronation Cup. She settled at the back of the pack. She comes with an outside bid, and she finishes up evenly for third. She has some respectable buyer speed figures for Brendan Walsh. She's bred to at least get a mile. I'm curious to see what tactics Jose Lezcano uses.
Yeah, me too. I like her as a horse. I am concerned that she's just a closing sprinter, Dan, and that stretching out isn't really going to work for her. As you've already pointed out, she's a more than ready. This is a Samsung female family. I think the second dam is a sister to Sky Classic. I mean, there's a lot of pedigree to stretch. I don't know if she's going to do it, but I do like her as a horse, and I think she'll be a very fair price in here.
Poolside with Slim, the number 7, liked to be forward early in her career, and those tactics could work very, very well in this race, especially if the one Makanga scratches. Frankie Dettori gave her a perfect ride when she won the Penn Oaks 2 starts back, just settling into the pocket, and everything worked out when she beat Nice's Pie. Last time out, they ran her in the Tepin at Churchill Downs. She ran okay. It was a decent field. The third place horse returned to place in the Grade 2 Saratoga Oaks with a 93 buyer. But some horses just don't handle that Churchill Downs turf course.
That's true, and it's at least worth pointing out that Tepin was run at a very strong pace, and she was up close to it. I mean, I didn't think she had some kind of big excuse in there because it still looked like she had every chance to win through the stretch, and just kind of wasn't good enough. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about her. I'm not a big fan. I don't really like any of her races. I'm not so sure that Nice's Pie didn't run at least as well as she did in the Penn Oaks 2 starts back. She could win here. I think there's a good trip coming. I just don't like her that much, and I didn't think she'd be a great price in here.
Dynamic Pricing is the number 8. She's a graded stakes winner at Churchill Downs earlier this year. Coming off this race, a third place effort in the Lake Placid at Saratoga, she settled near the rear of the field, was urged along by Arad Ortiz on the second turn, got to the outside, and finishes up well for third. All in all, it was a decent closer's trip, but this race was kind of controlled up front.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I mean, it's a little bit of a slower early and faster late race, and the 1-2 finishers really had the jump on Dynamic Price. And I thought she was really game here to be gaining ground into third in this race. Good performance here. I really liked her Edgewood also on Kentucky Oaks. I thought she ran great in there. And the 2 races surrounding that, the Florida Oaks, she had an impossible trip. I thought the Belmont Oaks 2 back when they stretched her out a little bit. Trouble early, trouble late in that race. I just think she's way better than she looks on paper. And in some ways, she's just a horse to beat in here.
Nicest Pie, the number 9, I still think is relatively unexposed. She was really good at Turfway Park over there, all weather over the winter. And I thought she ran pretty well in that Mamzelle 2 starts back, going 5.5 at Churchill. Didn't break very well, widest turning into the stretch, and then just was picking up some horses late. Last time out in the Penn Oaks, she stretched out, but she still doesn't show a lot of speed. She got a nice ride cutting the corner. She was running on at the end. Does she have enough tactical speed to overcome the pace if it's slow?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if she does get a little more forward, though, now in her second route attempt, because coming from last in the Penn Oaks just really wasn't going to work. And again, she probably ran at least as well as the winner did, although I agree with you, Dan. I mean, Rispoli really gave her a good closer's trip there. He saved all the ground. He got through on the inside. And then this filly really ran at the end of that race. I think she's really good, and I think she's a dangerous horse in here.
Lady DeBerry is the number 10, going out for Brown and Pratt, and those connections sent this one out to a runner-up effort in the Jimmy Durante in her final start as a 2-year-old. After 2 starts, I'm beginning to wonder if she's improved off that 2-year-old season, and I wonder if the fact that Chad's putting blinkers on makes him wonder that too.
Yeah, agree. But looking for the answer here. Here's her most recent start, and I don't know if you have a different take here, Dan. This is her stakes, a stake start at Monmouth. Just no excuse in here. She got a good trip. That's her stablemate, Spalady, just pushing her out of the way in the stretch and taking over. This horse will wind up getting third. I don't like either of her starts this year. She's got obviously has an awful lot to prove. I guess the most interesting thing about her, Dan, is that Chad's even running her in this race.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because she's going to be a good price on the tote. Her last race, she was just simply one paced after a good trip. Maybe with the blinkers, she'll try to show some speed. And if Pratt doesn't think there's a lot of speed in this race, perhaps they'll just try something completely different. One of the also rans from that last race returned to place in a New York bred stake at Saratoga with a 78 buyer. Ready to Jam might get forward if she's in this race because she's stretching out in distance and she picks up a very aggressive rider in Kendrick Carmouche. She's coming off a likable win at Woodbine, a race with a pace set up for her going shorter.
It just seems like she just really took a step forward in that, which was, ostensibly her 3-year-old debut. And she took a nice step forward there to win with an 89 buyer. She's got to prove that she can do it going a mile.
And Proctor Street looks like that she'll be able to draw in. She is a perfect 2 for 2 in her career. And her first start against winners, she beat 3 next out winners. The runner-up coming back to win the Lake Placid with a 91 buyer. This horse has a potent closing kick, another one that might need a little bit of pace luck.
Yeah, and a really big pedigree too. Listen, that was a super strong allowance race that she just won at Saratoga. Now, she had perhaps the best trip and ride in the race there, but she also really ran and beat a good field.
And if the 13 and 14 get in, they come in with solid form, although they might need to step up just a little bit to get to the winner's circle.
I think so. Vino Rouge, I thought, ran pretty well last time, though, denying mixologist in that race. Unfortunately for her, she got disqualified.
15 value areas entered main track only. Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time and the winner memories. We both were bowled over by the way Les Rays bowled over the field at Longchamp last time out. Looking at the horses she faced, it didn't look like that was the strongest field in the world, so she's going to get a test, especially if she has to rally from out of it.
She's got something to prove for sure. I was sort of taken with her form over there, especially those last 2 races. And listen, I was looking to give her a shot in that Lake Placid, which was a tougher race than this one. So I'll stick with her here. But it's not like she finds some, super soft spot. This is a good field. She's gonna have to run to beat this field.
We're both going 3-8. Dynamic pricing might have been pace compromised last time out. We'll see if she can come with a kick. 3-8-5-6 for Mike, 3-8-9-6 for me. It's the winner memories. Friday's race of the day, opening day, Belmont at the Big A. Good luck.